You're on ABC local radio right around Tasmania. I'm Melanie Tait. And now throughout this week, we are going to be putting the spotlight on carers of all different types because it's Carers Week. And I mean, you don't have to be a genius to know that carers in this country do amazing work. And Helen Callanan is an end-of-life doula and educator, a palliative carer, and she joins us now to talk a bit about what that actually means. Helen, thank you so much for your time tonight.
Thank you, Melanie. It's great to be there. I was very recently in Hobart leading an end-of-life doula training, so it's so great to be with you guys again on the air.
Because I guess we think of doulas, don't we, as beginning of life, don't we?
Yes, yeah, we do, and that's traditionally where people do think from. However, overseas, Melanie, in UK, USA and Canada, end-of-life doulas, or otherwise known sometimes as death doulas, are quite well-known and well-utilised, and it's definitely a growing arena in Australia. And, you know, we work alongside palliative carers, we work alongside families, we provide care and support, education and resources for people at end of life, for their families, for people who actually, sometimes it's people are planning their end of life and they want to know, you know, what their options are, and helping people be more prepared and supporting carers and families who are the ones at the coalface. And as you say, do amazing work.
So when we think about the end of life, Helen, it's usually family are around and nurses, you know, who are there when things are starting to really wind down. What does an end of life doula add to that process? What is the doula doing that the family or the nurse is not doing?
Well, it's not so much about what they're not doing. I think there's a bit of a distinction. So the nurse and the medical team, they're providing medical and nursing support. So that's a very specific thing. And the palliative care nurses that come in, you know, have a range of other things that they provide as well. The families are often providing the day-to-day care and are really the ones who carry the great load, you know. So an end-of-life doula can be there. Sometimes it's like providing emotional support, letting people know that, you know, what options there are available in their planning, helping them find resources, helping them perhaps plan a team that can support the carer. Because often, you know, we know the stats are that 80% of people say they'd like to die at home, but actually it's often about 14% that actually do. And part of that is that there, this is not the sole contributing factor at all, but part of that is that there's a high level of carer burnout, if you like, because the needs are getting greater for care and the carers getting more and more, you know, exhausted and without enough supports. You know, and it really does take a village, you know, to support a person coming into life. It really does take a village to support a person going out, you know.
Helen, what, when might somebody bring your service in? When might somebody contact a doula?
So I get contacted by a range of situations. To give you an example, sometimes I get called when someone gets a diagnosis or someone in their family, a life-threatening or a terminal diagnosis. Sometimes it's coming in then to help them navigate, you know, this extraordinary range of choices and options and navigate the health system, and a bit like, you know, in almost a bit like an event planner, you know. Right. And then another time I get called in is sometimes when the person is at the final stage, what they call the active dying stage, and often anywhere in between that. You know, sometimes it's the person who has the diagnosis who contacts me, who wants to know their options and plan their end of life and provide support to their family, or it's the family who contact me who wants support. Sometimes I don't even meet the person who has the diagnosis or who's dying. Sometimes I'm working directly with the family, supporting them.
How did you get into this work, Helen?
Yeah, great question. I've been doing this for nearly 30 years now, and it started off, I was around a lot of people who I used to I still actually do, as a Reiki practitioner. And I started to be working with a lot of people who were at end of life, who were very ill, terminally ill and dying. And over time, I just had more and more experience. I nursed my own parents, both of them at home, one in a nursing home, one at home, till they passed.
Right.
A number of friends, close friends, living in the hospice and the palliative care unit with them for 3 weeks, sleeping on the little uncomfortable bed. And then I started to have people approach me for their families and friends, and sort of word just got out. And now, there's more and more people looking for this support. And I think, Melly, one of the things that's going on right now is people are very time poor. People have got careers and lives and their own families, and we now have this extraordinary boom in our aging community, in the baby boomers getting aging, and approaching end of life. And so there's just sometimes not enough people to go around to provide the care and support for our people that we love, that we want to. So it's about having another resource, having another pair of hands, another heart, another bouncing board to get ideas, and to someone who's got your back. That's what I always say about a doula. Doula's got your back.
Helen, how is it for you emotionally, this job?
I personally love it. I think it's one of those things, and it's really interesting, Melanie, that the people that come to me for training, some of them are coming because they want to talk to one person, so we want to look after one person in their personal life. Some people are coming because they feel really drawn, to do this work. And I think, because it is such a privilege, it's such a sacred, blessed time to be with someone at the end of their life, and it's a very intimate, special time, and can be very, very challenging. And, like for me, I think, and for carers especially, and I was a long-time live-in carer for my elderly mother who had dementia. I lived with her for a number of years and was her full-time carer. And honestly, I burnt out, truth told. And I know the struggle that it is, and there's a lot of loss and that a carer goes through. Self-care is like so up there on the necessary required list. And so I have a lot of practices that I have in place. I have a great counsellor that I see regularly to keep me, on track, and to keep me in love with what I do, and to keep me actually renewing, myself. And because things are challenging, sometimes they're challenging, or, we're all human beings, we get triggered, and we need to have our supports in place. And I'm a great advocate for, people using supports that work for them. For some people, it's having a little time out. Sometimes what a carer needs is a damn good night's sleep, good food, support with that, taking supplements, whether it's yoga or meditation, or maybe it's a nice walk with the dog, having friends around, having a laugh, things like that are sustaining to our nature, to our spirit, to our being.
Helen Callanan is with us. She is an end-of-life doula and educator. We're talking about caring for people who are on their way out of this life. Helen, what sort of things do you teach at the training? What are the fundamentals?
Well, there's sort of two parts to the training, Melanie. The first one is like a one-day foundation workshop. So it's really where people come and we look at what is death, who actually dies, what's palliative care, what is a good death. And then we look at the stages of end of life. So we look at planning before there's a diagnosis. What can we do now so that we're not struck, at the end when something does happen to someone, we know what their wishes are. We plan ahead. In the active dying, what's actually happening there? How do we deal with that? How can we support someone at that time? Once the death's actually happened, what's happening there? What are our options? What resources are there for us? And then care for the living, so care for the people after the death, and bereavement and grief. So it's a very jam-packed day. We cover a lot of things. I give out a very comprehensive manual, because often it's like, take it home, let your journey begin now. Take it home, read back over the day, put your own plans in place, talk about what you want with your family. I see so often, Melanie, the tragedy of where a conversation's not being had, because you know what? Stuff happens, and things happen unexpected, and they catch us, and our life takes a major, curve, a major turn. And the more conversations we've had about death and dying, about what our wishes are. There's a woman I know, 5 days 5 years later, she's still agonising whether she did the right thing burying her husband or whether she should have cremated him, because he was sick one day and dead the next. Do you know?
Dear. Yeah.
Why? Because, and he was in his 40s. Why? Because they never had that conversation.
Mm.
So I really encourage, people that I work with, make your plans, have your conversations. It's tough, it is a confronting issue, but here's the truth of it. It's the one thing, the only thing in life that you can guarantee is going to come your way.
That's for sure, isn't it?
Right?
Yeah.
People say it's death and taxes. I go, you know what?
You can get out of taxes, yeah.
People do it all the time.
Yeah, that's one thing we've all got in common, isn't it?
It really is, and it's the only thing. And yet, we plan our weddings, we plan our births, we plan our retirements, our vacations. We just don't plan our end of life. It's nuts.
Mm. When somebody does die, do you continue to support the family after that?
If that's what the family want. Basically what happens generally when I meet the family, we'll talk about what their needs are, and we work together on creating what is most efficient and effective for your family. So with some families, absolutely, I'm involved afterwards, helping them then, in that bereavement period, because often when someone's died, you've been more and more absorbed, more and more busy, more and more, involved as a carer, and it's got harder and harder and tighter and tighter and more, and then it's over, and it's like a sudden ending. Then you've got the aftermath of planning the funeral or celebration or whatever, it is that you choose to have. And then everyone goes home. And that's often the very hardest time for a person, because they're on their own with their grief. They're finally, it's like, who am I now? Who am I now? My life's been, I've been fully identified as a carer. And this happened to me, when my mum had to go into a nursing home because I could no longer provide the level of care she needed. I just wasn't capable of it emotionally, but as well as that physically. And in fact, I felt like Mum would get better care in a nursing home, and I'm clear that she did. It wasn't her choice. She wouldn't have wanted that, I know. However, I could no longer do it. And so in doing that, I grieved so hard when Mum did that, when I got separated from Mum, basically. I knew every hair on her head, It's a very difficult transition, especially when you've been so absorbed and consumed, in this incredible role. And then all of a sudden it's done. So, yes, I do work with families ongoingly if that's what they want. For some people, when the person's died, the family is there. And often what I say to people too is, if I'm, doing a really, really good job, you probably won't need me there, at the very end, because your family, you'll feel empowered, you'll know what's happening, I'll be at the end of the phone, I'm there as a resource. But about, honestly, what I really would love, if I could get my job done the best I can, Melanie, is that people can honestly, hand on heart, when it's all over, go, you know what, I did the very best I could at giving them the sort of ending that they wanted, To know that you've done that for me, I know I've done that for many people. It's the most satisfying feeling that I've been able to give everything I could. Maybe I couldn't do everything they wanted, but I really, really, really did my very best. And so to me, to be able to help people do that is just such a gift, such a privilege.
It sounds like you do really amazing work, Helen, and thank you so much for sharing it with us tonight. We really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you, Melanie. It's my favourite thing. I love to talk about it. I'm very grateful to be able to share with you and your fabulous listeners. Thank you so much.
That's terrific. Take care. Thanks, Helen.